How much savings do I need in order to retire? Or when can I retire? Are two of the most common questions answered by those still working with the primary purpose of generating income. Those two questions are literally impossible to answer without answering the question, how much will you spend in retirement? The best way to answer how much you will spend in retirement is through detailed budgeting and tracking of spending. But because budgeting is a hot, sensitive topic and one that requires a lot more time, today we'll just speak in general terms of annual spending estimates. Hi, my name is Kurt Nelson. I'm 53, almost 54 years old, and my wife of 32 years and I have spent the last 2.5 years retired, learning a lot about retirement. We'd like to bring that to this channel, Leveling Up Retirement Now. I spent 30 years prior to that in corporate America working on lean manufacturing and continuous process improvement, which has given me the desire to optimize every situation. If this content sounds interesting to you, please hit subscribe and like. Also, hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when I release future episodes. One of the most famous studies ever performed to answer these pressing questions about retirement was performed in the late 90s by 3 professors at Trinity University. It was the intent of that study to understand at what safe withdrawal rate or what percentage of your financial portfolio could you extract every year and still fund a 30-plus year in retirement. In summary, it concluded that someone with roughly a 60-40 equity to bond portfolio could withdraw about 4% of their financial portfolio, allowing to increase those for the rate of inflation for 30 years and safely fund all 30 of those years. There's been much debate over the last several years about whether the study was too conservative or too aggressive at that 4% rate. But for now, let's just assume it was correct and go with that for the balance of our discussion. Now let's bring the conversation back to expenses. Once you come to terms with this 4% withdrawal rate, you simply have to do the math of inverting it to say, I need 25 times my annual expense rate in my financial portfolio to safely fund my retirement. So if you take your annual estimated expenses and multiply by 25, you should come up with the size of your financial portfolio that you'll need to fund your retirement. So let's say you'd like to spend $50,000 a year in your retirement. If you multiply that by 25, you understand that you'll need $1.25 million in your financial portfolio in order to safely fund your 30-year retirement. That seems like a lot of money for what seems like a normal retirement. I mean, at $50,000 a year, we're not going to be spending months on a beach in the Caribbean or living in our McMansion here in the U.S. The amount you need to be entering into the 25X formula is net that of any other social capital you may have in the form of Social Security or a pension. So if you're retiring at the standard age of 67, and let's say you'll have Social Security income of $30,000 a year, you'll only need to be funding the net of $20,000 a year in expenses. Using the 4% rule, 25 times that $20,000 is $500,000. So now that we've calmed down from thinking we needed $1.25 million just in order to fund a $50,000 a year retirement, let's get back to why I named this episode Expenses Matter with 3 exclamation points. It's because no matter what emotions you have about the different values I said you need to have in your financial portfolio, you need to understand what scope creep with regards to expenses can do to your retirement. Assume for a second you've come to terms with the savings needed in order to fund this reasonable retirement lifestyle. Once we start adding what seems like pedestrian level expenses to this lifestyle, you may be startled by their impact. The average car payment for a car loan initiated in 2023 was $726 per month. Using the 4% rule, the additional savings needed to fund that $726 a month car payment is $218,000 of necessary additional financial resources. This would be even more if you assumed the Trinity study was overly aggressive in its 4% withdrawal rate. Once you start stacking some of these expenses, you realize that for every $20,000 you want to spend per year in retirement, you'll need an additional $500,000 saved. And this is why it's critical to have an accurate understanding of what you'll be spending in retirement in order to answer the questions, how much do I need to save in order to retire? Or when can I retire? I'm certainly not advocating a minimalist lifestyle, or that in order to retire early, you need to be a penny pinching miser. But you do need to understand and be very intentional about the spending you'll be doing in retirement and save accordingly. As I mentioned before, we will be spending future episodes talking about budgeting and how to reduce your expenses, including taxes. But I wanted to set the table with understanding what those expenses mean regarding how much you will have to have saved in order to fund your retirement. Until the next episode, have a wonderful day and level up.